Douk Audio just released a new amplifier, the H7 Pro, and a lot of people are going to tell you it's a great amp, and I really wanted to do the same, but I ran into two issues that I just couldn't get past. Let's address both those issues right away. The H7 Pro is a Class D amplifier that, like many others on the market, uses the Texas Instruments TPA3255 amp chip. It has a fun retro vibe that uses dual VU meters that I actually really enjoyed. The H7 Pro is an updated release from the original H7, which was an amplifier that I've never used. But according to my research, the original version had two volume knobs, one for each channel, which really confused consumers. So the H7 Pro combined those two knobs into one volume knob, which is where my first issue lies. It's something I'll explain to you in further detail in just a few minutes. Initially, I was so excited because the H7 Pro is going to give me two audio inputs, XLR and RCA, which meant that I could connect my DACs via XLR, and that left the RCA input for something else like a wireless streamer or a turntable. But it's with these XLR inputs that things started to go south for me. Simply put, the XLR volume output on the H7 Pro is considerably louder than the volume output you get when you're using the RCA input. Now, this leads me to my second issue, which is with the volume knob, and I want to explain how that fits in with the XLR issue. But before I do that, I just need to explain to you what happened while I was using the H7 Pros. Now, I have a new to me topping D07 Pro Octo DAC in for review, and I've been using it the past couple of weeks instead of my Dynafrips Aries 2. Now, when the H7 Pro arrived, I immediately connected the topping DAC via XLR to the H7 Pro, and my CD playback felt way too loud, and it was hard to dial in a comfortable listening level via the volume knob. Now, this confused me, so I thought it must be an issue with the topping. So I made the same XLR connection with my Dynafrips Aries 2 DAC, and I had the same issues. Now, I swapped both DACs to the RCA input on the H7 Pro, and it was at this point that the volume was much easier to listen to, and I didn't have any trouble finding a comfortable listening level. Now, for example, I was playing Sinead O'Connor, and at the lowest available audio volume selection, notice I said lowest available audio selection because I'm going to talk about this volume knob here in a minute. The XLR output was between 66 and 73 decibels. Now, when I swapped to RCA and played the same song at the same volume setting, I actually registered 56 to 65 decibels instead. Now, keep in mind, there is not a remote control with this unit. So each time you swap between the XLR and RCA inputs, you're going to have to get up off the couch and adjust that volume level appropriately. Simply put, I found this change in decibels kind of annoying, but it gets even more interesting. The volume knob on this unit has a notched feel to it when you adjust up or down to the appropriate volume setting. It doesn't click, but you can feel each notch settle in when you go up or down one level. Now, what's interesting with this volume knob is the first three turns up, you don't get any volume at all. There's no volume, and then you go up a level, no volume, up a level, no volume, up a level, no volume. And then at that fourth turn, that's when the volume level comes in, which I think might be a design flaw because it's not compensating for those lower listening levels. Okay, let me see if I can give you an example here with this volume knob. As you can see, we've got music playing over here. So I'm at 0, 1, 2, 3, nothing. There was my audio at 4. So back down to 0, 1, 2, 3. There you go. Now, why does this really matter? Because when I was listening with XLR inputs, it was at that fourth notch where I really wanted to be able to turn it down a couple more notches just to be able to have some music playing in my small listening space without being overpowering. And I could never dial in that lower comfortable volume level because at that fourth notch, when I'm like, I just need it down one more, the volume disappeared completely. Now with the RCA input, it was easier to dial in a comfortable lower listening level for when I just wanted to have something playing lightly in the background. but those first 3 notches still did not produce any sound on the RCA input. Now, even though I've been talking a lot about the first 3 levels of the volume knob not producing any sound, it's worth reminding you that when I finally started to get sound, it was at 66 to 73 decibels with the Sinead O'Connor song using the XLR connections. Now, when I tried just for fun to go up to a quarter turn using the XLR connections, it was just way too loud for my listening space. There's just something weird overall going on with this volume knob. So after juggling this for over a week, guess what I ended up listening to mostly? The RCA input, which basically means I'm back to having an amplifier with only one input. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have the longest listening experience with XLR inputs. I've really only began to add those into my system within the last year by adding in DACs. So I emailed my friend Douglas, who often leaves helpful comments on my YouTube videos, just to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. Now, Douglas explained there is a difference in decibels between consumer audio and an RCA input and pro audio with XLR. So it's common to be able to have that decibel difference. However, Douk Audio could have taken that into consideration in their design and probably added in a few resistors to help compensate for that switch and have it not be such a large decibel sound difference, if really any at all. Now, all this to say, the H7 Pro is a fun amplifier to use. And if it wasn't for these 2 issues, I would recommend it easily to friends. Given it's using the same Texas Instruments amp chip, it has a lot of the great sound features that a lot of other Class D amplifiers have on the market, and it made it fun to listen to when I wasn't having the volume knob issue. But with that volume knob issue, I really feel like the only person I could comfortably recommend this amplifier to is someone who had 0 interest in ever using XLR input and only ever wanting to use the RCA input. But it's at this point, if you're going to spend $130 on the H7 Pro, there's probably another Class D amplifier out there that you could spend less money and just get the one RCA input instead. Now, I'm a big fan of Douk Audio. I've reviewed several of their products here on the channel, so I'm wondering if maybe I just got a lemon of a unit. I'll be interested to see what some of my other fellow reviewers out there have to say about the unit, because again, I've always gotten quality products from Douk. Maybe this is just something that didn't quite pass the quality control inspection. Again, this jarring difference between the decibel levels of the RCA and XLR inputs was just something I couldn't get past, and that volume knob just really drove me crazy. And these are the 2 issues that's going to make me hesitate to recommend anyone buy it right now. Speaking of other Douk Audio products, I reviewed a preamp they sent me that was the weirdest and wildest piece of audio gear that I have ever used. If you'd be interested in learning more about their T13 preamp, you can do so by watching this video here.